Good afternoon, and welcome back to HUD's 2023 Community Conference. We are in the Level Up Your Housing Counseling Program session. My name is Claire Weatherby, and I'm a technical assistance provider with ICF. And I just want to say that I'm particularly excited for this session because having worked at a local housing counseling agency and different other nonprofits in the past, I know it can be really difficult to find the time and find ways to operate your program and grow and find new services and better your organization. So we're happy you're here today to take some time to do just that. As you know, attendees are joined in listen-only mode. If you have technical questions, please put those in the chat box and send your message to the host. And if you have content-related questions, you can put those in the Q&A box and send to host, presenter, and panelists. So we'll be looking at that throughout the presentation to answer questions in writing, and then I will be back at the end for our Q&A where we'll ask some of your questions live to the presenters. And so with that, to guide us through today, I would like to welcome my colleague and your moderator, Shauna Marai.
Thank you so much, Claire, and appreciate that nice warm welcome. Second to last session of the day. We have such amazing programs, like Claire mentioned, that we are going to feature today in this Level Up session. We hope that you're inspired. We hope that you can see your agency in one of them, or two of them, or all three of them. So we will be talking today with Wealth Watchers, Affordable Homes of South Texas, and Neighbor Impact. There should be some time at the end of this presentation for questions and answers. So Claire will be looking at those, and we will bring her back on later to see what your questions are. We will need to end about 5 minutes early today because we're on back-to-back sessions. And thank you so much for your support there. And we'll talk about some resources as well at the end of the session. As we like to do, we want to get your feedback and find out more about our audience. It helps us as presenters and also our panelists. So tell us in this first question, we have this one and then we have two more that we'll ask later. Which of these strategies do you think that your agency could improve upon? Like which ones do you think this would help you level up? Is it marketing and outreach you could be doing differently or better or more improved? Is it developing partnerships? You know, do you have partnerships with banks, lenders, and other folks who might be working with other funding sources, foundations? Maybe it's internal processes and procedures. Maybe that's a place where you think that you could level up. Or maybe it's more training for staff. We have this open-ended. You can answer all four of these, or all three of these, whatever you're seeing in front of you. But we're really glad that you're here working with us so that we can get to know sort of what you would like to do. I am seeing an incredible amount in terms of marketing and outreach here as part of the presentation. I'm seeing also a fair number in terms of partnerships. And, you know, those that you'd like to improve. And then it seems like either training for more staff or internal processes and procedures you would also like to improve upon. It's like they're neck and neck right now. So we can take a look later as we go through the presentation and catch up with you all, but really glad that you're all open to doing things a little differently and learning as we go. So as Claire mentioned, I'm Shauna LaRue Marai. I'm a director here at ICF. I lead our technical assistance relationship with HUD's Office of Housing Counseling. It's a relationship that I revere, and it has helped me in terms of leveraging a lot of other HUD programs. And also when I worked in local government, I worked for a large urban county in New Jersey, and we funded and worked with a number of nonprofits through the Community Development Block Grant Program and HOME. And so I'm very excited to be here with a panel here, and we will hear first from Carrie Davis. She's the president and CEO of Wealth Watchers, based in Jacksonville, and then later we will talk to Myra Martinez, the Deputy Executive Director of Operations at the Affordable Homes of South Texas, based in McAllen, Texas. And then Sonia Capeche from Homes, she's a Home Source Director at Neighbor Impact in Redmond. So lots of very diverse places across this country that these agencies are coming from. So I would love to welcome Carrie Davis and hear from you first. Carrie?
Great. Thanks, Shauna. I'm excited to be here. And as Shauna mentioned, I'm Carrie Davis. I'm the president and CEO of Wealth Watchers. We're located in Jacksonville, Florida, with a footprint in Northeast Florida, Southeast, Southwest, and Central Georgia. We are a HUD certified housing counseling agency, as I stated. We're also a community development organization with a rich history. We were established in 2001. We received our HUD certification in 2007, and we are a proud affiliate of Home Free USA. We're really committed to our mission, which is building viable communities. And our primary focus is on enhancing the financial capabilities of individuals and families. And we do this to ensure that we're equipping families not only to building wealth now, but building wealth for future generations. And so for us, in our journey, we found homeownership to be a powerful vehicle by which to build and to create and sustain homeownership and wealth. So for us, homeownership is that vehicle that we not only build wealth, but we also create the communities that I described earlier. But also for us, our homeownership department, which is where our housing counseling program is also about sustainability. So as you can see, not only are we committed to promoting homeownership for new home buyers, but we're also committed to preserving homeownership. And as you can see from our list of commitments, everything is really centered around our families and the individuals that we serve. And so as we talk about today, one of the things that Wealth Watchers is very focused on is how do we ensure our sustainability? One of our strategies for creating unrestricted income is through our homeownership department, and specifically, again, housing counseling. We all know that for housing counseling, the resources are not limitless. So we're always looking for ways to complement the funding that we receive from HUD. One of the ways that we do that is by looking at our partnerships. And I noticed when we did the survey, marketing and outreach and partnerships were two of the ways that everybody felt they could use a little bit of help. And what I can share with you is that developing successful relationships is the first and is the key to being able to build that revenue stream that we need in order to continue to do the work that we do. So for Wealth Watchers, looking at our partners and developing those relationships, an example of that is the successful relationships and partnerships that we have with our lending institutions. And with our lending institutions, and you see a few of them here, Wells Fargo, TIA, Self-Help, Truist, is looking for ways that we can help our financial institutions meet their goals. Creating home buyers is one of those ways. And so we've been able to utilize our expertise in creating new home buyers and to not just have a financial relationship, but really truly have a reciprocal relationship where we both work together. But we figured out ways to monetize our expertise. And that's one of the things I hope to challenge each of you to do as you look at your organizations and look for ways to increase your revenue. Another way that we've been able to increase our revenue is not only just looking at our financial partners, but also looking at our other housing counseling agencies and looking for opportunities in the community. So again, going back to the survey, the marketing and outreach component, one of the things that Wealth Watchers is very intentional about is ensuring that the community sees us as a resource. So not just the community as a whole, but the community in terms of our elected officials, our local, state, federal agencies. We want to be that organization that when they're thinking about home ownership, housing counseling, financial capabilities, that they think about Wealth Watchers. So when the Homeownership Assistance Fund was launched, once again, our homeownership promotion team ensured that we worked very closely with Florida Commerce, which was previously DEO, Department of Economic Opportunities. So when they launched the Housing Homeownership Assistance Fund, we were right there not only to help market the program, but to also help our homeowners to go through the program, make sure they had all of the information and provided all the documentation they need in order to have the best chance at being approved. In doing so, when the Florida Commerce decided to, as part of their homeownership assistance fund, to fund housing counseling, really Wealth Watchers seemed like the least likely organization to apply because we're smaller. But smaller is just that, smaller. One of the keys to Wealth Watchers is we have the ability to expand and to compress when needed. And again, as I shared earlier, we talked about partners. So Wealth Watchers was able to reach out across the state of Florida to our amazing group of housing counseling agencies, and we came together and built a collaborative. We applied for the housing counseling contract, and I'm happy to say Wealth Watchers was awarded a $20 million contract to provide housing counseling services throughout the state of Florida. Now, we couldn't have done that by ourselves, and just having partners wasn't what made our application successful. We had to ensure that we had the infrastructure in place so that if we were awarded the contract, that we'd be able to execute it. So in addition to partnerships and really being strategic, you need to ensure that you have the technology in place and that you have the human resources in place that you can reach out to and pull them in when an opportunity comes available. So I want to make sure that I know we're going to be short on time, so I want to leave some time for questions at the end. But what I will say to you as a housing counseling agency is to look at your program as a social enterprise. And we know that any enterprise cannot be successful unless they're figuring out ways to create revenue. So as this workshop is titled Level Up, again, we know that without housing counseling agencies, that we would have less informed home buyers, we would have higher foreclosure rates, and that will impact the communities that we live, work, and play in. So we play a critical role in the community, but we can't continue that role if we're not looking for ways to generate additional revenues and resources to support that work. So Sean, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, Carrie, thank you so much. And I think one of the things that impressed me when we were getting to know the great work that you're doing there in Jacksonville at Wealth Watchers is how incredibly like partnership driven your website is. The fact that you're giving like the cities and the counties that you're working in, like what kind of down payment assistance that they have available. I mean, you are walking what you're talking about, because you are seen as like a one-stop shop for homeowners in that area. I just have one follow-up question for you is, you talked a lot about external partnerships and how you did that. This is more internal. How did you know that you were ready for this amazing big opportunity with the state of Florida in the homeowner assistance fund? And it may be that you're leveraging your own HUD approval, but how did you know, what were indicators inside your organization you were ready?
Well, it begins and ends with our team. And again, I noticed with the surveys when they were talking about some of their needs, staff training, professional development. So we do a couple of things. For us, professional development is not an afterthought. It's a part of our strategic plan. It's a part of everything that we do because we need to ensure that our team members are knowledgeable and that they are definitely on top of this changing environment that we're in. So I would say internally, staff development is key. Another thing we do is we have a business strategy coach that works with our team as we continue to look and plan out what we want to do, not just this year, but over the next 5 years. And so our strategist is also the one who worked with us on our strategic plan. So
Okay.
I definitely think it's critical for organizations to be very intentional about their strategies and using those plans to not just sit on the shelf, but to really make it a working document.
Okay, excellent. Professional development and actually using and operationalizing your strategic plan with a strategic coach. That sounds like great advice. We'll see if folks have questions for you, Carrie, but I just want to thank you so much for sharing what Wealth Watchers is doing in your area.
Yeah, thank you, Shauna, for having me. I'm excited.
All right, we'll talk in the Q&A. And I want to welcome Myra Martinez to come on and talk about the affordable homes of South Texas. Myra?
Hi, Shauna. Thank you so much. My name is Myra Martinez, Deputy Executive Director of Affordable Homes of South Texas. And I'm very excited to be speaking in front of all of you today and sharing our experiences as we leveled up our counseling program. And I hope that you find it extremely useful and that you're able to replicate it within your organization. So let me first tell you a little bit about our organization, Affordable Homes of South Texas. We, for short, we call ourselves AHCI, AHSTI. We were created in 1976 as a rehab organization focused on improving substandard living conditions in the city of McAllen, Texas. And for those of you who may not know where McAllen, Texas is, we are right on the border, the Texas-Mexico southern border. On the slide, you'll see the big circle right there. And our area contains some of the poorest counties in the nation. And these counties have colonias, which have residents that present a very unique set of issues, especially when it comes to purchasing homes. In '98, we began building new home construction and added that to our rehab program. And then in 2006, we became a HUD certified or HUD approved counseling agency. We had one counselor at the time. Today, we have 3 HUD certified counselors and 1 on contract. We counsel about a pipeline of 250 pre-purchase counseling clients a year and produce about 450 group education graduates a year. And so talking about leveling up, when we thought about this, we really boiled down to 3 categories. We boiled it down to consistency, positioning, and outreach. So let's start about consistency first. And how do we achieve consistency in our counseling program? First and foremost, you have to hire right the first time. And I know since COVID, we've had our challenges in turnover and in just finding quality clients that are willing to work for the salary that we pay a counselor. And counseling, especially in the area that you're in, you may not have other counseling agencies in your county, such as we don't. We don't have counseling agencies in 2 of the counties we serve. And so it's not as we can, counseling's a pre-purchase counseling is a big occupation down here. So we had to really deliberately stop from pulling the trigger on hiring someone just to fill the vacancy. And we heard a lot of pushback with, we're already spread too thin, we need somebody to fill the vacancy, but we had to hold true to making sure we were hiring the right person. Because in the long run, it takes you a lot more money and a lot more time and a lot more work to hire, train, and terminate someone that never should have been hired in the first place. So what we did is we developed a set of must-haves for each of the positions in the counseling programs. And so just to share one of the examples of having a must-have as a counselor and as a counseling program position is that they must be bilingual, because most of the people that we serve speak Spanish in addition to English. And so that's not something that we could be flexible on. They had to be bilingual. We could not hire someone that was not bilingual. It would end up being more work for the other crew that did speak Spanish. And so that's something that you have to really just develop. It's a set of must-haves, things you're not willing to compromise on that specific position in your counseling program. One efficient way to make sure you hire the right the first time is to develop your internal candidate pipeline. I am such a proponent of developing internal candidates because you're already familiar with their quality of work, the pace of their work, you're familiar with their work ethic, and they are already familiar with your expectations and in terms of performance and in terms of requirements and regulations of that counseling program. Just to share with you, 3 out of the 4 counselors that we have are all internal candidates. And that's just one of the things that we've just really had such success on. They've started off, actually 3 of them actually started off as customer service representatives when they first started with the organization, and now they're HUD certified counselors. So they're proud of that development. Thirdly is that your staff, all your counseling staff, not just your counselors, but your auxiliary staff must know the HUD handbook. And they just released an update, so now is the perfect time to make sure everybody revisits that handbook, learns it, memorizes it, breathes it, knows it inside and out. Because the more they know it, the easier it is going to be for them to do things right. And then you don't have to go back and make sure that they're doing it right, because you know that they are. They live and breathe those HUD standards. And when it comes time to, as far as consistency, the quality of counseling amongst all counselors is the same, because they're all following the same procedures and the same methods and the same guidelines that the HUD handbook expressed. So the other final thing in the consistency category is to regularly audit files. And this is critical because you can't know what is not being done well. You can't know what is falling through the cracks unless you're auditing your counselors' files. Are they being put together in the order that they're supposed to? Are they doing the action plan correctly? Are they sending the notices when they should be? Everything that must be adhered to as part of the counseling program, you need to make sure it's being done, and that's through regularly auditing. The second bucket that we talk about is positioning. And so how do we position our organization to level up? And we talk about leveling up, which is moving up to the next level, right, for your organization. The first point or the first issue that you want to take care of is the infrastructure in your organization. You want to create an infrastructure now to be able to embrace opportunities for growth later. If you think about the infrastructure and you ask yourself the question now, can my counseling program expand? And the answer is no. Why? This is one of my favorite exercises to do, is that I will take something that I think is something we cannot do and begin to ask myself why. Why can't I expand my program to provide this service? And so I ask why. And the answer to that, I ask why. And the answer to that, I'll ask why, until I drill down to the root cause of why I cannot offer that additional service. And that root cause is what I developed the solution for in terms of, we developed the solution for in terms of being able to create the infrastructure to be able to get that growth. And so that is one of my favorite exercises. That's something that I recommend to everybody because it's quicker, it's more efficient, and you really get to the root of the problem. Also, to position, you want to internally focus on creating a culture that understands and accepts housing counseling, that it's important in pre-purchasing, that for you to understand that every staff member is a marketer of your organization. So you need to ask yourself, does the rest of the staff understand, accept, and promote housing counseling? Do they know what it is you do? Do they realize how important it is in buying a home? The organization staff, as I said, are the top promoters to the public. Consider if they're wearing a company shirt with your logo on it, and they're in the grocery store, standing in line, waiting to pay, and somebody comes up and asks them about their company or their organization because they saw their shirt. What are they going to say? Do they know what to say? Do they know where to point them first? Do they know how they would convince someone to start the process for counseling with your organization? You need to develop that elevator speech for them. You need to help them practice it, and you need to empower them to use it. That is the best marketing tool we have, is our own staff. And then finally is outreach. The last bucket, it seems very broad, and it is, but you have to be more, take advantage and be more proactive in the outreach. It's more than just being in fairs, in mini events, in parades, in presentations. For example, we conduct a home buyers fair every year in June for National Homeownership Month. We've done it for 25 years. It is not an Affordable Homes of South Texas Home Buyers Fair. It is called the Home Buyers Fair. And we get sponsorships from everybody that's involved in home buying industry. So we get sponsorships from realtors, banks, mortgage companies, builders, title companies, and they have a booth there. And we have free seminars about how to choose the right builder, how to build your credit, how to choose the mortgage basics, lending mortgage basics. And while we're there, we take advantage of our counselors meeting with customers, pulling their credit report for free, and reviewing it with them and being able to say, okay, this is what I see initially, what you have ahead of you. Would you like to set up an appointment and work with us? It's free, and get them in that way. And that is one of the biggest sources we have in our pipeline for pre-purchase counseling. The other outreach we have, and this is most recently, is the participation in the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Now, we had positioned ourselves earlier because we had set up an infrastructure that we were able to accept documents electronically, process applications electronically, have virtual appointments, and we were able to conduct that right in the, or turn that on a dime and set us up for that during the midst of COVID. And so in 2021, when the first monies came out with COVID assistance for rental and mortgage assistance, we were able to capitalize on that with the city and start offering, facilitate the rental assistance program and the mortgage assistance program. This was great because this opened us up to a whole new set of customers that didn't really know about us before. And it really set up a great pipeline of future homeowners from these renters. And some of them have come in since then, engaging in pre-purchase process, trying to see if they're ready. And some of them have just continued to work with the counselors to get in a better financial position after the rental assistance program was completed. And so those, in a nutshell, were kind of how the key things that we did to level up our program. And it's been great because in the last few years, when other organizations were laying off people and downsizing because of COVID, we in fact did the opposite, hired more staff, grew, offered more services, and we're still at that same level that we were when we first started these assistance programs after COVID. So it's been great, and I hope that you've been able to find some useful information in what I've said. But just make sure that you remember to be consistent in your program, the quality of your program, the delivery of your services, so that it's always resonates, high quality counseling, and that you make an impact with customers. And always, try and, now's the time to start positioning yourself for future opportunities. There is no time like the present, as they say. So now is the time to do that. And then finally, conduct outreach wherever and whenever possible, and you'll see your housing counseling programs grow. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Myra. And folks learned so much about this, broad cultural, your homeownership fair, et cetera, everything that you're trying to do from hiring to the consistency of monitoring, things like that. So you're doing so many different aspects of leveling up. I just have a very quick follow-up question. You talked a lot about hiring, and I wonder if you could drill down, because you had mentioned that you're hiring somebody and they work for the organization doing other things first and then become housing counselors. So maybe what's one thing that you look for when you hire somebody for your organization?
Well, Shauna, I wish I could say we found the magic formula, and I don't want to say that we have. However, what we've done has worked so far, so we're going to roll with it until it doesn't. But what we've really thought to look for is a little bit more beyond just someone interested in helping the community. And so I think the first inclination when you hire somebody for counseling, especially in the counselor role, is social work background, social work mentality. Do they want to help the community, and that warm and fuzzy quality? And certainly that's important, because you need that empathy, you need the warm and fuzzy when you deal with customers. But I think you can find a whole host of a new pool of candidates if you start to look for other things. For example, we know that as a counselor, you work on budgeting with the customer, on credit. And so sometimes finding people from a financial background, if perhaps they did something financially in the bank or in some type of other capacity in a company, or they were finance majors in school. I think that gives you a whole new pool of candidates that would make great counselors or other programs that you offer, and that the rest will come in as they work with that.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's great advice. Lots of intersections, and we definitely heard you earlier in terms of those two that can provide in-language housing counseling, lots of Spanish speakers. So thank you so much. Really appreciate getting to know your program today, and stick around for the Q&A coming up after our next panelist.
Thank you.
Of course. And I'm so pleased to welcome Sonia Capeche. Please come on and tell us everything about neighbor impact and the great work that you're doing. And if it's okay to say, in the middle of Oregon.
Yes. Well, hello, everybody. I am Sonia Capeche. I'm the Home Source Director at Neighbor Impact in Oregon. Thanks so much for having me and the opportunity to share. This is a very important conversation. I want to start by giving you a little bit of context of the type of agency that we are and where I'm speaking from, because I think sometimes that's important when you're hearing the ideas and seeing how those relate to either the areas that you are or the type of agency that you are. And so Neighbor Impact is a community action agency. We were founded in 1985. Home Source is a HUD-approved homeownership center, and we are one of the 11 lines of business of the agency. Home Source has been in operation for over 20 years, and we offer the whole broad spectrum of services, including financial capability, match savings, homeownership, both counseling and education, and post-purchase, and right now focus on foreclosure prevention. I have a hybrid team of 8 people, and some of them work part-time, some of them work full-time. Our service territory is pretty large. It's over 8,000 miles. We cover 3 counties and the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. And our population is over 250,000 people for the area. It's a mix of urban and rural, with a lot of rural. The agency overall serves an average of 60,000 duplicate clients a year, with approximately 230 staff members. And we offer a full array of services, from emergency response to proactive programming. And we seek to move folks beyond poverty towards long-term stability. And so I think that in some ways we are very different than a lot of the other housing counseling agencies. But I know I'm not the only one on the space where you have an agency that can capitalize on the other services that you are providing and how that can impact your clients and serve both as a referral source, but also as a more holistic approach towards long-term stability. The other thing that I may have in common with a lot of you is the fact that we are rural. And I think that the realities of rural sometimes are different, and we have to keep those in mind. But now to focus on the topic of today's conversation, I really want to speak about the digital divide in the context of leveling up. I first want to say I agree 100% with what my colleagues were talking about. The importance of infrastructure, the importance of staff, the importance of partnerships. I wanted to invite you to think a little bit about the community that you're serving and the change that we're seeing in the world today. So I think one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves when we are talking about leveling up is, how do we serve the whole community? Not all our clients have internet, a computer, smartphone, or a tablet to access services. But I want to point out that it's not just that. To me, there's kind of 5 elements on the digital divide. First, the cost. Even with the new low-income connectivity programs available in many cities now, the expense of having equipment and internet represent an extra burden, which impacts primarily those members of our community who are already financially stretched, which many times are our clients. The second aspect is the know-how. The ever-changing technology is impacting the elderly group and also those that experience disability the most. And so their ability to actively participate in this virtual world where we're living in is impacted by not knowing how to use all the different platforms, all the different technologies that we need. And in those cases, the technology in itself becomes a barrier. I think no longer is the days that is enough to have a computer and know how to use an email. It goes way beyond that, and it changes really fast. So we cannot forget that there's a broad aspect of our community that does not know how to use it, and that it's important to consider. The third element is infrastructure. For example, there are many areas within our rural service territory where we do not have strong internet access. And I know that that's true across the country, even though more and more towers are being put or access to internet is broadening constantly, still not there everywhere. And so that really disproportionately affects those living in rural areas. And when you think that today you work, you bank, you shop, you socialize online, then not having internet is not just not having internet, it's not being able to participate at the same level on today's economy, and that can create limitations. The fourth element I want to point out is that the ESL, or English as Second Language community, is more prone to experience a greater digital divide. Even on sites that auto-translate, many times you have parts of the site that don't translate, like the photos, for example. Or sometimes you have a link, and the link takes you to a form that the form doesn't translate. In other cases, you need to understand where are you supposed to be clicking on the first place for that translation to be activated. And the last element that I want to highlight when it comes to this digital divide and how we are situating ourselves is the stack-up effect that some people face when they face a lot of these barriers at the same time. So that is very important. So how do we serve our whole community in the context of this digital divide that I think COVID accelerated? It existed before, without doubt, and that is going to be present. And our solution at Neighbor Impact has been multi-pronged, and we're still expanding on it. So I want to invite you to think about some of the implementation strategies that we have implemented and see if either you're doing them already or if you could do them in your space. For example, our initial communications with potential clients includes a very super simple assessment of the person's situation in relationship with that digital divide so that we know how to serve them better. In some cases, then that means that we need to include instructions on how to participate on a virtual appointment, or how to convert the document into a PDF so that the application that we submit to the state for them to receive mortgage assistance doesn't get denied only because they try to submit a photo instead of a PDF, for example. I think that at the beginning of COVID, people were more aware, but 3 years later, now a lot of people assume that everybody's online, that everybody knows how to use it, and I want to invite you to keep checking because not everybody is there. Part of our solution has to make sure that all our forms are both digital and in paper format. So no matter which way the client chooses to engage in services, there is a tool that exists. I think that one of the most overlooked aspects when agencies have transitioned to digital or are thinking to transition to digital is that you think it's one tool and just two formats. And I want to say it's not, it's really two tools that they need to complement each other. But for example, a paper application needs to indicate how and where do you turn in that paper application. A digital form, you may want to take advantage of the fact that forms can be smart, and now instead of asking everything, you'll ask questions, follow-up questions based on what they answered before. So think of them as complementary forms, both with the idea to allow people to access services, but they're standalone items. Part of the solution that we have implemented too, as part of COVID, and now we chose to keep it, is that we have application pickup boxes outside of our offices. What this has done is when somebody needs to pick up a paper form, now they can do it any time of the day or the night that they need. They are no longer tied up to the 8 to 5 office hours. When people are accessing them online, it's given that they can do it anytime. So why aren't we extending that the same courtesy to folks that are using in paper? So it's simple, but it has really made a change. And at the same time, we install secure drop boxes outside of all of the offices where we have a physical location. This allows people to turn in their papers in any time of the day that they want. And I think that the last solution that we have implemented that I want to highlight is that in each of our town and cities that we have an office, we converted one space to a virtual office, a virtual station. So a client can come in to our office, they can use our equipment, they can use our technology know-how, and they can meet with a counselor that is working maybe from home, or maybe is working in a different offices. We have a large service territory, so maybe we don't have counselors with expertise necessary and all the specific certifications in each of the offices. Instead of making the client or the counselor drive and spend time and resources for one meeting, the client gets to go to the office that's closest to them. The counselor gets to meet the client and provide quality service. As you can hear, a lot of these are really low cost and simple solutions. But when you integrate them into your practice and offer them consciously and constantly, they do make an impact in how and who you're able to serve. I feel like the digital divide is real, and the financial impact that it has in the community members will only get greater. But by no means am I suggesting that we stayed in the old days of housing counseling, doing everything in paper and everything in person. No, we need to embrace, and many of you have been embracing these new ways of doing services. That's important because the clients that can be served digitally are going to bring into the organization efficiencies that you didn't have. And they will free up some space so that you can provide a programming for the other clients that may need a little bit of more time or space. So I think the two of them really go together. And as you're thinking on how are you serving more and better, how are you leveling up your services, I really want to emphasize the importance of being both a digital agency and an agency that didn't only transform to digital, but is looking at serving their whole community. I think that we have a responsibility to really level up the playing field for our community members so that services, especially financial strength services, homeownership, wealth building opportunities continue to be an opportunity for everybody to access.
Okay, thank you so much, Sonia. You provide a lot of rich information around how you continued your, we are not post-COVID, as folks know, but you're continuing many different touch points in terms of providing lock boxes and external paperwork, and also assisting those who need digital inclusion. So I'm going to save my question for you, because we have a few in the queue, and I want to make sure that there's at least 10 minutes here for questions. So I'm going to invite Carrie to come back on, and also Myra, and I'm going to at least ask the first question around funding and looking for new funding. Maybe what are some next steps? One of you might take this, or you might popcorn it to others. What about new funding? What would you recommend? And who would like to start? What's the first
I
step?
can start.
Carrie, please.
So when looking for new funding opportunities, I definitely suggest first being very clear about what you can offer, and then have conversations with your municipality. So in Jacksonville, we're consolidated. So our city and county is one. And some of the ways outside of just regular housing counseling that in the past we've been able to partner with the city is we've been able to provide foreclosure counseling and processing. Also, United Way is another great opportunity. As Mary talked about during COVID, because of our expertise in housing counseling, it was very easy for us to talk with United Way and participate in the rental assistance program. So I think there's so many different opportunities. I always go back to our financial institutions. One of the ways, so for instance, Bank of America with their Connect to Own, where they actually pay us a fee for all home buyers that come through our program for education, and that closes. So be intentional to look for fee income opportunities as well.
Okay, and there was a question about fees, so thanks for giving that as example. Other ways in which to bring in new funding sources. Myra?
So one of our sources for new funding, well, maybe not new source, but new ways to get them, is the banks. And we've always traditionally partnered with banks on events. But when we created the IDA program and the Smart Savings program, we strategically sought out banks to fund these, and it's been really great. And that was a new source, maybe not necessarily, again, the source itself, but a new way they could partner with us instead of just the regular old sponsorship events and classes and kind of thing. And it basically gave us money to give the customer for when they met their goals. So I think that's been really great for us. And I think we always talk about creativity. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of creativity out there. And I think there's just a matter of getting outside your frame set and saying, okay, we've done this over and over again. What are we missing? What is something new that we could offer to other types of sources beyond our normal scope? And I think with the brainstorming, one or two is liable to pop out and say, okay, let's try it. And all you can do is try. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a successful, if you make the successful pitch, and again, how they benefit from it, because they've got to be in it for something too, as a business. And I think that you'll be very successful.
Okay, great. Great.
Shoshana, one of the things that we've done at Neighbor Impact over the last few years is in partnering with the affordable housing developers for the region, and we do the income verification for them. And so that we do that for a fee under a contract, and it has been a good way to strengthen the partnerships and really bring capacity to both organizations, so they don't have to do it. And it's something that I have not heard a lot of other entities doing it, and we do it with a number of them.
Okay, great. And sticking with you, Sonia, that was really helpful, and a different type of fee that you can earn as an organization. We never really got to, kind of the different software packages that you're using for some of the digital inclusion work that you're doing with your clients. Do you want to mention just like, and you don't have to name like specific types, but you can mention like, the different sort of buckets of digital services that you offer?
Yeah, so we use some smart forms to collect our intakes and applications and that type of things. And so because we have them, I really like the fact that they can be smart, so they make it faster for a client to fill out. And that's why I was talking that when you do your paper version of it, it has to be kind of it looks totally different, right? So that it can be include all the information that you have. We also use a different system for the enrollment of our classes. Before, it used to take a lot of staff time. People would have to email and then they have to wait and see when it was, even though we had a calendar of classes. Now they can go and do it on their own. Just the same way that you can book a massage appointment or a doctor's appointment, right? So you can sign up for any of our education classes and fill out the intakes and do it that way. And now, if that doesn't work for you, then you can come to the office and sign up in person. And I think that that's kind of what I wanted to highlight on this intentionality of you do capitalize on the technology, because that will bring efficiencies. It will take a lot less time for your staff to now be doing enrollments, and you can have if you have to change something on a class, or you want to email resources to the whole class, it can be automatic. There's automatic reminders, and the business are using it. We should be too, and that's the change we did quite a few years ago.
And not just your own staff time, but also clients. So if they respond to that, it can be quicker for them too. Yeah, absolutely. It looks like we're going to take two more questions. One, it looks like Myra already jumped in there about funding competitive salaries. Would you like to provide an answer to that?
Sure, I typed off of it. So it is very, very challenging. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that, oh, it's not a problem. That's one of the things that we do compete with constantly. I'm a proponent of the culture also, in addition to the salary. And we've, as I answered in another question, we have a lot of boomerang employees that leave for a higher salary and regret it because the culture over there is awful, in their words. And so they want to come back over here where the culture is great and they get a lot of other incentives. Besides, even though they may not get paid as much. And so I know that can only go so far, but the other thing that we do is we conduct a salary analysis every other year, and we make sure that we take all the positions and compare it against other nonprofits in our areas, in the regions, that for those positions that have similar duties that we have, and then we compare it with market as well. And so it does one of two things. One, it makes sure that it can reinforce that we are paying market for those positions that come back that say, no, what you're paying is fair. And it's a great way to show the employee and validate, I guess, what their pay is. And the second is that in those cases where the positions are under, we do something about it right away, and we budget in immediately a bump up in pay to at least get them to the minimum of the agreed upon new salary range. And that's been really great. We also make sure we do compensation summaries with every performance review to make sure that they understand that, yes, they're getting paid this much, but the value of what other non-monetary benefits they're getting, the insurance, the days off, and so on and so forth, makes a great compensation package that you typically can't find in other organizations or companies.
Okay, thanks for that, Myra. And I think I'll have Carrie we started with you and we'll end with you in terms of your bank partnerships. Folks want to know more about that. So kind of how do you set up expectations with them? Maybe give an example of, your relationship and whether or not it's contractual, et cetera. What would you like to share about those relationships?
So those relationships are ongoing. And what we do is ensure that as new team members come to the bank or there's leadership changes, we're intentional about going and meeting with them and sharing with them what we do. But the other thing is not just to look at your relationships with the lenders in silos. So we are working and engaging with our lenders year round so that and I won't say which of our lending partners, but it goes back to also articulating your strategy to your lending partners, because sometimes funding will come up at the end of the year, and because they know what you do, they'll come to you. And that happened with us just recently. One of our financial partners was in a strain and was like, hey, I just discovered I've got $20,000 more that I've got to spend by the end of the year. I know you do this. Can you work with us? Absolutely. So definitely ensuring that your lending partners know not only who you are, but what you do and what does that relationship look like. So our lenders also different pot of money, but they support our activities during National Homeownership Month. So they're sponsors. So again, you really want to look at how to have a holistic relationship with your lending partners.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to thank Sonia, Carrie, and Myra. You were all excellent and provided a lot of great ideas in terms of leveling up your housing counseling program. So thank you all. And I'm going to turn it back to Claire, and she can close us out. And we'll start the next session right after Claire gets done. So let me just make sure I'm sharing. Okay, here you go, Claire.
Great. Thanks, Shauna, and thanks to all the speakers. So like Shauna said, we have 2 more sessions. They are concurrent and they are going to start very shortly after 4:30 Eastern. So we'll have After the Storm, Housing Counselors Respond to Disasters, and which is hosted by me, and then Spotlight on Rental Housing Counseling Long-Term Lessons with Shauna. So still a lot of great content to come. And as always, you can keep in touch on the conference webpage. Don't forget about 6 Connects. I think there's a discussion board, a couple open on there. And you can always email HUD or subscribe to Housing Counseling Today. So thank you very much, and we will see you soon.